Welcome everyone to 52 Living Ideas. Tonight is the night for studying Kahlil Gibran's The Prophet together. We cover about 4 or 5 sections each time we get together. The way that this will go this evening, we will do 2 readings of each section, and then we'll invite anyone who would like to comment, share parts that spoke to them, how they viewed it, what they think the prophet is saying to us. And then we'll move on to the next section and give it 2 readings again. I will ask if you would like to read, please cue yourselves up in the chat. Type in an R if you'd like to read. And then what we'll do, that's how we'll separate from whether or not you would like to make a comment. And if you want to make a comment, you can just type in an exclamation mark. And I will look for 2 volunteers. That would be great. I have one. If I don't get anyone, if you're feeling shy, I'll start us off with one of the 2 readings, and then you guys can, let your coffee get through your veins, and then you can put in your R for the next one. So for today, we are going with, so I do see that I do have a quick question, Shrikant, because you have on joy, sorrow, houses, clothes, and crimes. We did get through joy and sorrow last time.
Okay, so then we can just start with the next ones. I was not sure.
I wasn't sure if we wanted to do joy and sorrow again, because, they're pretty deep. All right, so then in that note, we're going to start with houses. And so I will throw up the writing on the screen. Let me go ahead and do that. And I have my 2 readers. We're going to start first with Mona. She's going to read it once through, and then Evanik is going to read it a second time, and we'll open it to everyone. We do ask here to go ahead and please keep yourselves muted unless you're going to speak, just to keep the background off. And don't be concerned if you can't unmute yourself. I probably blocked it just while folks were reading so that they could read uninterrupted. I'm going to set this up here, and then I will have us get started. Oops, sorry. I went too far. Sorry, I should have had to set up. Apologies. We're doing houses, right? Okay. All right, and you'll have to let me know, Mona, if this is big enough. Should I make it a little bit bigger?
No, it's okay. I have glasses.
Ah, fantastic.
All right. Can I start?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Then a mason came forth and said, "Speak to us of houses." And he answered and said, build of your imaginings a bower in the wilderness, ere you build a house within the city walls. For even as you have homecomings in your twilight, so has the wanderer in you, the ever distant and alone. Your house is your larger body. It grows in the sun and sleeps in the stillness of the night, and it is not dreamless. Does not your house dream? And dreaming leave the city for grove or hilltop? Would that I could gather your houses into my hand, and like a sower scatter them in the forest and meadow. Would the valleys were your streets, and the green paths your alleys, that you might seek one another through the vineyards and come with the fragrance of the earth in your garments. But these things are not yet to be. In the fear, your forefathers gathered you too near together, and that fear shall endure a little longer. A little longer shall your city walls separate your hearts from your fields. And tell me, people of Orphalese, what have you in these houses? And what is it you guard with fastened doors? Have you peace, the quiet urge that reveals your power? Have you remembrances, the glimmering aches that span the summits of the mind? Have you beauty that leads the heart from the things fashioned of wood and stone to the holy mountain? Tell me, have you these in your houses? Or have you only comfort and the lust for comfort and the stealthy thing that enters a house, a guest, and then becomes a host, and then a master? Aye, and it becomes tamer, and with hook and the scourge makes puppets of your larger desires. Though its hands are silken, its heart is of iron. It lulls you to sleep only to stand by your bed and jeer at the dignity of the flesh. It makes mock of your sound senses and lays them in thistledown like fragile vessels. Verily, the lust for comfort murders the passion for the soul of the soul, and then walks grinning in the funeral. But you, children of space, you restless in rest, you shall not be trapped nor tamed. Your house shall be not an anchor, but a mast. It shall not be a glistening film that covers a wound, but an eyelid that guards the eye. You shall not fold your wings that you may pass through doors, nor bend your heads that they strike not against ceiling, nor fear to breathe lest walls should crack and fall down. You shall not dwell in tombs made by the dead for the living. And though of magnificence and splendor, your house shall not hold your secret nor shelter your longing. For that which is boundless in you abides in the mansion of the sky, whose door is the morning mist, and whose windows are the songs and the silences of the night.
Thank you, Mona. All right, and we're going to have one more reading by Evanique.
Then there was oh, sorry. Okay. Then a mason came forth and said, "Speak to us of houses." And he answered and said, build of your imaginings a bower in the wilderness, ere you build a house within the city walls. For even as you have homecomings in your twilight, so has the wanderer in you, the ever distant and alone. Your house is your larger body. It grows in the sun, it sleeps in the stillness of the night, and it is not dreamless. Does not your house dream? And dreaming, leave the city for the grove or hilltop? Would that I could gather your houses into my hand, and like a sower, scatter them in forest and meadow. Would the valleys were your streets, and the green paths your alleys, that you might seek one another through vineyards, and come with the fragrance of the earth in your garments. But these things are not yet to be. And their fear your forefathers gathered you too near together, and that fear shall endure a little longer. A little longer shall your city walls separate your hearth from your fields. And tell me, people of Orphalese, what have you in these houses? And what is it you guard with fastened doors? Have you peace, the quiet urge that reveals your power? Have you remembrances? The glimmering arches that span the summits of the mind? Have you beauty that leads the heart from things fashioned of wood and stone to the holy mountain? Tell me, have you these in your houses, or have you only comfort and the lust for comfort, that stealthy thing that enters the house a guest and then becomes a host and then a master? I, and it becomes a tanner, and with hook and scourge make puppets of your larger desires. Though its hands are silken and its heart is of iron, it lulls you into a deep sleep, only to stand by your bed and jeer at the dignity of the flesh. It makes mock of your soul's senses and lays them in thistle down like fragile vessels. Verily, the lust for comfort murders the passion of the soul and walks grinning in the funeral. But you, child of space, you restless and rest, you shall not be trapped or tamed. Your house shall not be an anchor, but a mast. It shall not be a glistening film that covers a wound, but an eyelid that guards the eye. You shall not fold your wings that you may pass through doors, nor bend your head that they may strike not against a ceiling, nor fear to breathe lest walls should crack and fall down. You shall not dwell in tombs made by the dead for the living, and though of magnificence and splendor, your house shall not hold your secret, nor shelter your longing. For that which is boundless in you abides in the mansion of the sky, whose door is the morning mist, and whose windows are the songs and silences of the night.
Thank you. Thank you both for reading this. Folks, please type in an exclamation in the chat if you would like to share some of your comments on Gibran's prophet speaking about houses. Go ahead, Evanique.
I found it very telling in the beginning, where it talks about the house as if it's the human body. And I think that's interesting because it paints the body like they use it in terms that you would build houses. So I love to watch HDTV. So it's funny how you see that built. And it asks the question, like, why do you have all these doors? Like, why do you have all these walls built up? What are you protecting? It's like, are you, and it asks the question, what are you protecting, your peace? Or are you protecting your comfort? And that's a good question, because one of the reasons why we put walls up as people is to protect our comfort. And that's why we don't step out and do things into the world. Like, we dream of these things, but we don't do them. And the question becomes, and I think Gibran challenges you and says, why? Why do you not do that? And, it's like, is it to protect your comfort? But you're not living. I've been listening to Outwitting the Devil, and I found some similarities between that and this. It's that, the devil is talking, and the devil is basically saying, I use your comforts as ways to keep you down and keep you miserable and to keep you submissive. So I guess the question that is really being asked here is that, what are you protecting and why? And are you really living, or are you just in survival mode? So those were my initial thoughts.
Thank you. Thanks, Evanique. Next up is Shrikant.
Okay, I have quite a lengthy comment, if it's okay.
Yes, please do.
Maritza, can you share this screen again? Because I just love this one.
Absolutely, yes, I shall.
Okay. So first, he starts by saying, imagine yourself building a house in the wilderness and what it would be like. So this, what does that mean? So it's like you and nature. Okay, the theme that I want to talk about here is the form and function. Okay, and one of my favorite quotes by Seneca is that the wealth is the slave of a wise man and the master of a fool. So wealth is a master of a fool. Wealth is a slave of a wise man. And this is the same principle that is being said here. Louis Sullivan talks about form and function. So I just want to show you how I see it here. So firstly, commune with nature and see what you need to build for yourself. So you have an idea of what you need and what you need in nature. So from the first principles of your nature, try to find out what you need in a house, what you need with your stuff. He says your house is your larger body. So it has to reflect who you are. You know, all your stuff, all your belongings, everything that you do, all your material things that you build. House here is being used as a placeholder for everything that you build that is yours. It grows in the sun and sleeps in the stillness of the night. Okay, so just this first, he talks about this connection between the individual and nature, and that you develop a house of what you should build based on that. Can we go forward? And then he talks about saying that would that I could gather your houses into my hands and like a sword scatter them into the forest in the meadows. Now this is a very interesting thought experiment, because what it does is that it immediately, now imagine your house suddenly being in the middle of a forest. You would actually think of some very interesting things of what is the house, what is the relationship of my house to others, what is my relationship to others, is this the right relationship? And what he's saying is that as you pass from you to your neighbor's house, you will carry that scent of nature with you as you go along. Can we go forward? Okay. So now here is the question of fear. See, in their fear, your forefathers gathered you too near together, and that fear shall endure a little longer. A little longer shall your city walls separate your hearts from your fields. So firstly, what is your stuff doing? What is your stuff doing? Is it, I mean, I think a lot of stuff, a lot of houses are just trying to protect you from other people. A lot of the stuff that you have just separate you from other people. So he's making a distinction between the house as a wall versus house as a place for you to live. Let's go further. Okay, let's go further. Okay, now here is the heart of the whole thing. That's the idea of comfort. And Evanik is right. And again, I wholeheartedly recommend that book, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, which is his best book, which was so controversial that it was published, I think, 75 years after it was written. It's the most brilliant expose of human psychology that he has come up with. Comfort. When you make comfort the primary, you are initiative dies. And you're seeking comfort, but when comfort becomes primary, then your ability to do things, your ability to direct yourself, your ability to take risks, your ability to grow, all of that is smothered by it. And I love the way in which he puts it. It came as a house guest, and then becomes a host, and then a master. So it's slowly, these habits, and these are our habits. This is human nature. This is our primate nature, to be like this, to become creatures of habit. And we all build these things. We build shells that come from within us, which were kind of pliant when they came up. Then they become shells, and they stop us from growing, and they come between us and the sky and everybody else. All right, let's go further. Okay, but you, children of space, I like that face, children of space, you restless in rest, you shall not be trapped or tamed. Your house shall not be an anchor, but a mast. So I love this, because it's a question of you having a purpose and then building things accordingly. So if you have a function and you're creating the form accordingly, if form follows the function, then the form actually is not a ceiling for you, but it's a launching pad for you. You're actually building larger and larger launching pads for yourself as you grow up towards the sky. But if you create a form, whether built by you or somebody else, as a ceiling, then it actually makes you shorter and shorter, and it brings you closer and closer to Earth. It's very comfortable. It will envelop you completely, but it's a exactly opposite direction. Okay, can we go forward? This is my favorite line of all. You shall not dwell in tombs made by dead for the living. Okay, this captures everything, because it's really about life and structures for life. If you build your house like a tomb, if your stuff is like a tomb made by the dead, in the sense that you're borrowing ideas of the past, that this is how I'm supposed to do things, for you, the living. Okay, this is like, Taleb uses the concept of Procrustean bed, where you ignore the living being and you make the bed or the house the primary. And this applies not just to physical things, it applies to all social constructs as well. It also applies to all intellectual constructs as well. It's saying that living function, that spirit in you which grows, it needs forms that are befitting to it. The function needs to create its own forms. And when forms don't let that happen, that is death. So that's it. Thank you, Maritza.
I have comments, but I shall wait. There's a few others queued up. So Mona, welcome.
Okay.
Mona, try now.
Okay. Wow. She can cover almost everything. So what else is there to say? I wanted to touch upon that one line that stood out to me that said that comfort murders the passion of the soul. And it sounded to me like you might start like an innocent thing. You get your comfort, but then you get attached to the idea that comfort is what makes you happy. And then when it's not making you happy anymore, then you try to make it even more comfortable. And then that's how it enslaves you. and then that was the point that I got out of that passage, that it was basically like an invitation to not make it too comfortable and go outdoors. Go outdoors and live with the sky. I love that. I actually moved out of the city, and my house is in the woods, and I've never been happier since. So yes, I get it.
Thank you. Thanks, Mona. That's funny. I am quite the city girl, but it's really funny to say that when I have such a deep, deep respect and feeling of tie to trees. More on that later. Paul, welcome, Paul.
Well, it's really the same theme, because I get the really strong urge to camp when the weather is right. And this just makes me understand what's happening to me. Because when you're out there in a tent, all the things that Srikant talk about happen. You have many fewer comforts. You've got the sky like right there with you. A few times I've had the courage to sleep outside, but then I almost froze myself to death. So I understand there's this level that you need of quote unquote comfort. But then when you're that close to nature and you realize that the people in past, many of them lived that way every day, it changes consciousness entirely. And this is just a beautiful, and we can still get that. So maybe we need our comforts to come back to them, but to even have a night or two without them is eye-opening. And I'm just saying how it's making me appreciate that experience from this passage, that he expresses everything about that so well.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. I have a few comments on this one because this was an amazing, amazing section. I'm with Mona. The line that kind of stopped me in my tracks the most was very much the line about verily the lust for comfort murders the passion of the soul and walks grinning in the funeral. What comes to mind for me is I was years ago now, I was apartment hunting. I still didn't own. And I went to see this place that was for a sublet. And it was the tiniest house. And it was like, I love to cook. The kitchen was such a small kitchen that it was like, I think it's called a galley. And it was just tiny. And I'm like, what? This is not a kitchen. There's no way. But then I turned the corner, went down some stairs and fell in love. That it was just an open room with a giant fireplace. And I was like, I had to have this place. And so I ended up getting the house, and I couldn't fit my furniture into it. So I literally just left my my sofa that I just bought, and I was so proud because it's this expensive, ridiculous, expensive designer sofa that I had bought like a year ago. I left it sitting outside because I was like, I will not be a slave to my material possessions, because I really wanted the apartment. And so this is my very inelegant way of saying that what I hear in this passage here, this poem, is the not so gentle, because I think he's very, very direct and insistent upon it. In fact, in the idea that we should not, the natural flow of things is that you slide from, guest to host to master, that your material things can become this almost without you knowing. It becomes a tamer, he says. And I think that this is an admonition for us to, again, don't float, because if you move with intent, perhaps you will be more able to see this, that you can see the switch and maybe take steps to alleviate that situation and not allow it to become you. That's what I saw in that passage there. And I personally love the idea of scattering all the houses around in the woods. I was struck by the idea that the reason why our houses are so together or out of fear, it's so true, but we don't think about that. But it's, if you think of, so for those of, some of us are in the East Coast, I know everyone's scattered, but for those who are in the US and in the East Coast, Philadelphia, New York, those are very old cities. And we see very odd things happening with buildings and streets. And we wonder, what the heck, why? But there was a purpose. That Srikant was talking about form and function. And these forms had a very specific function, and they were for the improvement or the safety of the community at that time in that era. And that doesn't exist now, and we're just living around it. And I think that this reminder that, the fear shall endure a little longer shall your city walls separate your hearth from your fields. That's the idea of, we keep ourselves separate from the fields that could catch fire at any time, or that hold scary unknown creatures that could harm us. And I think, and then he goes into this long page of questions that he's asking, what do you have? Like, what are you guarding with the doors? And it's so impactful to think, he's like, when you lock your door into your house, do you really think you're keeping peace safe? Are you protecting your mind? I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever viewed it that way. As somebody who probably has about 1 million locks on her door, it's something to give you a pause. The idea of what exactly are we, or have we lost sight of what we're protecting? And he's telling us that we are, but it's not necessarily our fault, that it's going to happen if you're just weaving through life. So I think it's it's such a sit up and pay attention kind of a poem. And that's what I hear it saying to us. Oh, Nalini, please go ahead, Nalini.
Thank you, Maritza. I think everybody has said about everything and said it beautifully. Shrikant read the last, I think the last line that he read was, "You shall not dwell in tombs made by the dead for the living." That is what touched my heart the most. But then the lines following that, "And though of magnificence and splendor, your house shall not hold your secret, nor shelter your longing. For that which is boundless in you abides in the mansion of the sky, whose door is the morning mist, and whose windows are the songs and the silence of night." I do live in suburb. I am surrounded by beautiful trees. And each morning when I get up, I see the first sunrise from the window and then from the door. And that's the first thing I do, is just go out and look at that. And then you see the filtered sun and the sky, and it's just breathless to see that. And you walk in the grass, and there is the dew, which touches your feet. And those are the first morning dewdrops. You look at them on the leaves, and they are just beautiful with the sun rays falling on that. To me, that is so beautiful. At night, I'm very fortunate. From my bedroom, I can see the moon. I go out and sit on the deck at 11 o'clock because it's so beautiful. And many times people have told me, Navini, you should not be alone out there. It's a very safe neighborhood, but still they tell me, Lynn, you should be a little bit careful because you're alone. But I love from 10:30 to 11:30, I love that. Just to sit there and watch the moon and the leaves, just the rustling of the leaves and the chirping of the birds in the morning. That's what I call a house. And I think that's what, to me, that's what he's saying, but I don't know.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's lovely.
Thank
You know, I will say, so you shall not dwell in tombs made by the dead for the living. And right after that, the next line is it almost pales in comparison to the impact of that line. But the next line is also quite lovely in its own. He says, and though the magnificence and and though of magnificence and splendor, your house shall not hold your secret, nor shelter your longing.
Mhm.
And I think that that's, when we think about, sometimes we use our comfortable space as a way to create a barrier between our desires. Like, if we keep busy in our own home, we don't have to face the fact that there is a loneliness factor, and that it's mitigated by going out, getting out of your comfort zone, right? And so I think that's just a lovely, again, something to aspire to have a house that's not sheltering your longing. I just think that's a beautiful thought.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
Shrikant, go ahead, Shrikant.
Yeah, I'm glad that Nalini brought up that quote. Maritza, could you read that quote again? The one you can read the tomb line and the entire sentence after that.
Yes, you shall not dwell in tombs made by the dead for the living. And though of magnificence and splendor, your house shall not hold your secret, nor shelter your longing.
Okay, again, Nalini, thank you for bringing that up. Leonardo da Vinci had a very nice quote. He says, "Those that deck themselves in the works of others will not allow me dignity of mine." Okay, those that deck themselves in the works of others, so they are wearing works of others on them as clothes. Now, this actually spans between the house and the clothes that we're talking about, but it's the same idea. Will not allow me the dignity of mine. It's the same principle. It's saying that no matter how many great creations that others have made, or you yourself have made, your own spirit and your ability to create is much larger than that. And you have to commune with the sky, with the infinite. Keep in mind all possibilities. Do not fall in love with what you have created, even though it is the best thing that you have done. And God forbid you kind of hang on to something other people have created just in order to impress other people and completely forgetting yourself. But even yourself, don't limit your spirit and the infinite potential that you have by your past works. That's it.
Oh, Shrikant, you're making me I have to read the next line in that case, because it flows so nicely with what you're saying. After he says, your house shall not hold your secret, nor shelter your longing. Gibran says, for that which is boundless in you abides in the mansion of the sky, whose door is the morning mist, and whose windows are the songs and the silences of night. And I feel like that's what Shrikant was just saying, and Nalini was just saying, and that's just delightful. So I don't see anyone else queuing up for this
Okay,
one.
just one more comment.
Please, yes.
I wanted to give another metaphor of a poet from India. He had a very simple saying. He says, a human being is like a bird. He needs a nest and he needs the sky. He cannot do without either. So I think that that's very appropriate here. Thank you.
Awesome.
Maritza, may I just say
Yes.
a few words?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Just what you said, Shrikant, and what I said about the house that I live in. When somebody talks about the house, I don't think of the rooms, the walls, but it's the things that I discuss. That is what makes so special, that house so special for me. Not the rooms, not the materialistic things, they are there. But it's just those that, you know, watching the sky, watching the moon, the silence of the night. Those are the things which are so special that it brings tears to your eyes, that you're fortunate to experience those moments where you're living. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nalili. I think that's very well stated. Thanks. Well, would anyone like to read the passage on clothes? I'd like to do 2 readings. It's very short. It's maybe a page and a half. So if you would want it to read, but not a long one, this is the perfect one to try to read. It's very short. Just type in an R in the chat if you would like to read. I can get us started. So I just need one more person. Don't be shy. We don't bite, I promise. All right. I am going to go with Mona. I will go first and then I will go with Mona after. And we're going to look at the poem on clothes by Gibran. Okay. And the weaver said, "Speak to us of clothes." And he answered, "Your clothes conceal much of your beauty, yet they hide not the unbeautiful. And though you seek in garments the freedom of privacy, you may find in them a harness and a chain. Would that you could meet the sun and the wind with more of your skin and less of your raiment. For the breath of life is in the sunlight, and the hand of life is in the wind. Some of you say it is the north wind who has woven the clothes we wear. And I say, it was the north wind. But shame was his loom, and the softening of the sinews was his thread. And when his work was done, he laughed in the forest. Forget not that modesty is for a shield against the eye of the unclean. And when the unclean shall be no more, what were modesty but a fetter and a fouling of the mind? And forget not that the earth delights to feel your bare feet, and the winds long to play with your hair. Go ahead, Mona.
And the weaver said, "Speak to us of clothes." And he answered, "Your clothes conceal much of your beauty, yet they hide not the unbeautiful. And though you seek in garments the freedom of privacy, you may find in them a harness and a chain. Would that you could meet the sun and the wind with more of your skin and less of your raiment. For the breath of life is in the sunlight, and the hand of life is in the wind. Some of you say it is the north wind who has woven the clothes we wear. And I say, it was the north wind, but shame was his loom, and the softening of the sinews was his thread. And when his work was done, he laughed in the forest. Forget not that modesty is for a shield against the eye of the unclean. And when the unclean shall be no more, what were the modesty but a fetter and the fouling of the mind? Forget not that the earth delights to feel your bare feet, and the winds long to play with your hair.
Thank you, Mona. So short but beautiful, this passage. Please type an exclamation if you would like to make some comments on this passage. Mona, go ahead.
Oh, I guess you know which one was my favorite line. The last one, just forget not, and it brings me back to the previous passage that we read, the one about the house, where he insisted that it's not about the house of stone that we should be concerned so much about, but the house of the world, our larger body. And then that's the one that lives very well naked. And then it feels to me like this one on clothes bears the same undertone. And I love the wind in my hair, and I could just hear Nalini talking about touching the dewdrops on the grass, and then like, yes, yes, no shoes, please. Yes.
I agree entirely. It's amazing. I even like I love the feel of mulch or like fresh dirt in the garden on my feet. It's quite delightful. Thank you, Mona. Next up, oh, I saw Creation. I saw your hand was up.
Yes, I love this. I guess it's the second sentence. That your clothes conceal much of your beauty, yet they hide not the unbeautiful. Right. This is a really interesting concept because it could mean so many different things.
Thank you, Creation. I agree with that. I think it really is. There's this passage is, I feel like the one before, the one about houses, was so much more direct. This one is almost like it's more gently showing you the same similar concept that it was like telling us in the previous one. I think it's just lovely. I have to say, when I first read it, I was kind of shocked when he talked about the north wind having shame as a loom. I was like, wait, what? It was almost shocking until I realized what it was he was showing me. It's not that the clothing itself is a problem. It's if you take this material thing and make it your impenetrable shield, and you put nature on the outside of this shield, you've made a wrong turn somewhere. And basically that's what both of these passages are saying to us. And I mean, it's beautiful, I think.
Is it in this book where it talks about something along the lines of, if you would realize that you were a god, right, you would be ashamed to cover up your body, something like that? I can't remember exactly the words. It might not be this book. Might be somewhere else.
It's quite, yeah. I think he says it without saying it, if that makes sense. He's a little more.
Yeah, there's something else that it reminds me of that's pretty explicit, where it says, like, if you would have known who you are, you would realize that it's a it's like a shame or a sin to cover up your body like it should be.
No, I don't think so, because he's more of a, he tells us God is in my heart. And
I'll find
he
it
says,
and I'll
don't
put it in
say,
the
don't say
chat.
God is, I'm sorry?
I didn't mean like God, like I'll find the quote and put it in the chat.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I'm curious to see where you see it. Thank you. Thank you, Creation. Would anyone else like to comment on this passage? I could probably say a couple more things, but I would love to hear your thoughts. And this one, I invite you to ponder, and I'm curious to hear if anyone has any thoughts on his use of unclean. Like, to me, the word, it's almost jarring to me, and how very forceful. It's possibly the most forceful word that he's using here to me. The idea of, he says, forget not that modesty is for a shield against the eye of the unclean. I had to read that more than once to make my peace with it. The idea, like, because, we view modesty to be something admirable. And I think ultimately it gets back, when I consider it in the greater scheme of the entire grouping of these poems, I had an easier time with it. The idea that it's he's not just specifically saying that all modesty is bad. I think it's a matter of, again, when you use it specifically as a shield. So in other words, you're no longer doing something in moderation. You've taken it too far to one side or the other. I think that's what he is, because he even says, when the clean shall be no more, what were modesty but a fetter and a fouling of the mind? And I can see that if we, like, modesty taken too far can be a fetter or a fouling of the mind. And we see that in today's world with some religions or cults or communities that, they personify these extreme, views of modesty that end up being absolute barriers to nature and to humans and to growth. Oh, go ahead, Evanique.
I think there was other people before me.
Nope, you're next.
Okay. Just really quick, I think when he's talking about this,
Wait, I'm sorry. Actually, I can't tell if, I will say,
I think it was
so.
Paul.
Mona, did you raise your hand twice?
Yes, so it's Paul.
Oh, then that's the confusion. I'm so sorry, Evanique. And I'm sorry to you, Paul. Apologies. Please, Paul, please go ahead.
We know you have good intentions, Maritza. So I want to propose, I'm curious what people think about this, that when we read some texts, we want to really analyze, we think that the writer had a very specific goal, like the Bhagavad Gita or the Tao, or when I read the prophet, and I have mixed feelings about this, that I'm hearing, like, how we do in our improv poetry night, a line comes out and it doesn't have a complete logical perfection, but it's the line you want to fit with the flow. And sometimes I feel like Gibran does that. And these words can't be analyzed at the level we try to analyze them. It's just an observation about exactly what he meant as unclean, exactly what he meant by sinews, for instance. I feel like they flowed out of his mind. That's just my thought. And they weren't as pure conceptual lessons as we might be trying to make them into. Just a thought. And I don't mind that. It's just a thought, though.
So wait, I have a question. I have a follow-up question for you. So naturally, it is impossible for us to know the mind of the author of the poet. But I would posit to you that the ultimate vision of Gibran for words like unclean, or even the entire sentence, is not what we are looking at and analyzing today. We're looking at it from the entire poem, as it were, and what the gist of what we believe his message was with this poem. Now, obviously, it's hubris. We're assuming there was a message, but we all are here today because we're all accepting that we believe there's something to analyze from this work. So then, with that in mind, would you then think that it's not as big a deal, perhaps?
Good, challenging question. I think that I want to, maybe part of his message is living with a little ambiguity in a line.
Okay.
It's all part of his message. Life is not simple.
Indeed. Well, he's definitely saying that. But but you know what's funny though? He's also saying it's not simple, but it doesn't have to be as not simple as you're making it to be.
Well put. Okay, let's leave it at that. That's
Thank
great.
you. Thanks, Paul. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mona.
Okay, so I won't say what Gibran thought, but I will say what I think. What made me think, and I'm going to touch exactly the word that you mentioned, unclean. So what made me think was judgmental. It was another way of thinking about someone being judgmental, and then the clothes being a metaphor for the shields that we put in our hearts, right? Because you don't want to show up your heart in front of someone who's judgmental. And then that's where you get locked in, right? Like if you keep the shields too tight together because you need to defend yourself, and then that shield becomes a prison, that becomes your fetter. That's what I thought he was trying to say. That was my feeling of it. It may not have been his intention, but that's how it spoke to me.
Thank you. Thank you, Mona. So I will say that comments like this make me super glad I don't have the ultimate dictionary on what it is that the author was in fact trying to say, because then I wouldn't get to listen to other people's ponderings. How dull would that be? Thank you, Mona. Ebonique, please. It's your turn this time for real.
Yeah, what I was thinking is when he was talking about the modesty, and I was thinking false modesty, right? Like, and he said we use it as a shield. The modesty is used as a shield. And I was thinking false modesty, like, oh, I don't know anything, or, oh, I'm just a mere servant, or, things of that nature. It's one of those things that we use to hide and for people not to expect much of us. And I think that's what he's saying. You're using it to hide who you truly are. And I think it goes back to why are you hiding? Like, why are you hiding who you truly are? Why are you hiding your greatness? Because I think, this false humility or this false, and it's so prevalent in all of society. Like, you see it in all parts, like politicians, religious leaders, people are just like, oh no, I'm truly not that smart, or I'm truly not an expert in this category, or I truly don't know much about this. And the person knows a ton about it. And it's like, well, if you have this false modesty, then people don't expect much from you. And that's in your comfort zone again. And if people don't expect greatness from you, there's no pressure to achieve that. So I think he was talking about that. I don't know what he was talking about, but I truly think he was talking about that as well. You know, if you hide your greatness, if you hide how great you are, you keep saying, oh, I'm not that great, then you're not being called out to do anything great.
Interesting. So I must be so much more of a pessimist than Ebonique, because I find that most people are not having false modesty because they're hiding how great they are. They're attempting to make themselves more great than they really are. Just my 2 cents. Sorry, Ebonique. Um, Connie, did you want to make a comment? I wasn't certain.
You know, I started to, I thought of, I think it's just totally off the wall, but I was thinking of the first thing in the Garden of Eden after Adam and Eve took a bite of the apple, they immediately clove themselves in shame. And somehow, when I read this on my own, linked it there. And I started to say it, and then I stopped typing because I think I'm off. But I just, when it was like, as soon as this happens, you won't have to cover your shame or whatever. So thank you.
Thank you, Connie. That is, I mean, we do have some people who have been studying Bible here, and so that is a true statement that, you know, once they ate from the tree of knowledge, they found themselves, they understood themselves to be naked, and they felt ashamed, and so they covered themselves in modesty, or they covered their modesty. So that's, yeah, I agree with Paul. I don't think it's entirely off at all. I think there is room there for this because Gibran was a religious person. So I'm sure there are threads and tendrils in there that maybe we may not quite be considering from that religious aspect. So that's it bears introduction into this discussion. Thank you. Thank you, Connie. Next up, I have Nalini. Hi, Nalini.
Hi. When I look at these lines, mine must be totally off, like Connie said. But Connie's, I think, was much better, and I think Connie was, it's not what she said. It couldn't be that. My take on this was that it's the modesty, the evil eyes, or the unclean actually would, to me, meant more like lustful eyes, and you're covering yourself from those lustful eyes. And in Islam, they do wear the burqa, and the eyes are always down. They cover the entire body, so that the men cannot see the women. So that's my take on it, that it's trying to actually say that the modesty is the way to deal with the evil eyes or the lustful eyes, and that's why they're covering. But that's my thought.
Thank you, Nalini. Maritza had to step away for a second. But I think you have a good point as well, because a lot of the Bible does talk about lust and modesty. But I do think that a lot of the church culture has made more of it than what it is. And I think lust is about everything, right? It's not just about the body. I think it's about, lusting after material goods. And the Seneca that we've been studying, I think it was mentioned earlier tonight, actually, that Sheree Kant mentioned it, where it says, the wealthy makes money its master, and the fool makes money its slave. And I think that's very true. for this. So I think it could be so many different things, but I think you're right on when you say that, it's kind of like, part of it is covering up the body. So I would agree with that too. I think there's so many different interpretations. Up next, I have Sabrina. Oh, wait, did she leave? Oh, no, there she is.
So, I think, part of what he's talking about here when he's talking about concealing certain aspects of the physical beauty, that it conceals certain aspects of the physical beauty, but it cannot hide the essence of who you are, right? Your inner beauty or lack of, right, inner beauty, that shows through the clothes, regardless of how hard you try, right? And then the other thing was like, sort of like this excessive attachment to fashion and material things can also restrict your freedom, your self-expression, because now you've attached yourself to something other than who you are. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you, Sabrina. Next up, I have Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot what I was saying because of that exciting thought of Rainy Lake, which I never mind that. That's an aside. But if you want to really not camp, live on a houseboat on Rainy Lake, like that person who just. But anyway, I did that once. But my comment is this, which is something about. I wanted to bring in that north wind thing just to clarify maybe what's going on here a little more, which is the north wind. Yeah, that's what put the clothes on us, which is really a reference to you need protection from the elements, the north wind, the cold north wind. But it kind of played a practical joke and made people think there were all these other connotations of clothes, when clothes have actually one purpose, making sure you don't freeze certain parts of you off. And that's what they are for. And then we put all these other weird meanings on them. So that's just another shade of conversation about this.
Yes, that's a beautiful way to point out what I see being said in this poem, this passage, the idea that, right, clothes are a necessity. There's no question. There is a time and a place for clothing, but if you hold so tightly to that and you start to do it, like, so for example, you need to be warm in cold weather, and that was the purpose for clothing. But do you need something that's like, has this giant letter for a name brand because somebody else was wearing it, so now it has high value and it's a must-have, like your life is over because you couldn't get that exact one? And you make yourself now the slave to the clothing because you need a specific type, and it needs to be, so it's like cascading. I often crack jokes about this dependency trees, and you could find yourself in one of those if you become, overly enamored with the need for clothing. But also, Mona spoke about clothing as a metaphor for openness or lack thereof. Like, if you have barriers around your heart and letting people in, that's your clothing, you're using your separation. So that's interesting. That's another way to spin that metaphor, as it were. Thanks, Paul. Oh, Mona, we were just talking about you. Hi, Mona.
Yeah, this discussion about clothes made me think about clothes for protection, made me think about a spacesuit. Like an astronaut will wear a spacesuit in space, but doesn't need to wear the spacesuit when he's back on Earth. However, if the astronaut continues to wear the spacesuit on Earth, it has become a feather because he's still carrying on that idea that he has to protect himself from something, which is not needed any longer, but it has become a feather at that point. Of course, he'll probably be nuts to do it, but that's because we're talking about an astronaut. I'm thinking much easier example, an umbrella. You use an umbrella to protect yourself from the rain. When you get home, you close the umbrella and put it away. You don't have to wear it. So like, it has to fit the purpose, right? The clothing has to fit the purpose. The layer of protection, like you wear it and then you put it down. But if you don't put it down, then that's the problem.
I can see that. Thank you. Next up, Evanique.
Yeah, I was just going to go off of what Mona said, that, it's the, I think he's saying, at times you do need protection. At times you do need to be safe, and that's okay too. And I think Mona's right. Like, you need protection, you need to be safe. And there's times where, but the hard part, I think, and I think it's not, someone said to me something sometimes like, it's easy, but it's not simple, right? So, I'm sorry, it's simple, but it's not easy. The concept to understand is simple, right? You need protection sometimes, and sometimes you don't. And sometimes you need a winter coat because it's 30-something degrees out. But in 80-degree weather, you do not need the same type of clothing that you would need in winter. But I think when you're protecting yourself in terms of, your heart, it's harder. Like, you need to protect your heart. Like, if for instance, somebody keeps taking you for granted or treating you like a jerk, like being a jerk to you, that you should probably protect your heart from that person, because that person has proven themselves not to care about your feelings or your heart, right? But then it's easier said than done. It's simple, but it's not easy because you're attached. And so at the same time, not only that, but after going through that, like going through a heartbreak, then you're like, well, your instinct is to protect yourself. And for a while, you probably should, because you're not thinking clearly, you're just getting over a heartbreak. You need time to heal. So you need that protection. But how long does that protection last? And it's not a formula. That's the thing. Like, I think especially, with life, it's not a formula. It's not like 2 + 2 = 4. You have to know, and you have to be able to tell yourself. And I think it goes back to the first part of the poem, where what are you protecting yourself from? Like, are you protecting your peace, or are you protecting your comfort? Or now that you've had your heart broken, are you are you protecting your comfort because you never want to feel that again? Or are you protecting your peace, and that you're not letting a specific person or a specific thing come back into your life because that thing or that person or the thing that you're pursuing is not good for you? That's the hard part, I think.
It's very interesting. It's giving me a slight different thinking for this passage. Thank you. Thanks, Evanique. How about if we look to see what Gibran has to say about buying and selling? Let's see what that is. So yeah, so this is an interesting discussion today. We did houses, clothing. Now we're going on to buying and selling. I suspect there may be tendrils of similarity here. So I'm going to cycle back to Evanique to read. If anyone who has not read yet would like to read, please type a R in the chat. This one, not, let me see. This one's only 2 pages also, so it's not super long. So I'm gonna cycle back to Evanique. I see no one else, so what I'll do is I can read second. since Mona's already read verse twice, and then if not, we'll cycle back. I see no takers. All right, Avanique, are you okay to read here?
Yes.
Fantastic. Let me go ahead and throw the share up, and let's look at the prophet on buying and selling.
And the merchant said, "Speak to us of buying and selling." And he answered and said, "To you the earth yields her fruit, and you shall not want if you but know how to fill your hands. It is in exchanging the gifts of the earth that you shall find abundance and be satisfied. Yet unless the exchange be in love and kindly justice, it will but lead some to greed and others to hunger. When in the marketplace you toilers of the sea and fields and vineyards meet the weavers and the potters and the gatherers of spices. Invoke then the master spirit of the earth to come into your midst and sanctify the scales and the reckoning that weighs value against value. And suffer not the barren-handed to take part in your transactions, who would sell their words for your labor. Come with us to the field, or go with our brother to the sea and cast your net. For the land and the sea shall be bountiful to you, even as to us. And if there come, and if there come the singers and the dancers and the flute players, buy of their gift also. For they too are gatherers of fruit and frankincense, and that which they bring, though fashioned of dreams, is raiment and food for your soul. And before you leave the marketplace, see that no one has gone his way with empty hands. For the master spirit of the earth shall not sleep peacefully upon the wind till the needs of the least of you are satisfied.
All right, I'm going to read it a second time. And a merchant said, "Speak to us of buying and selling." And he answered and said, "To you the earth yields her fruit, and you shall not want if you but know how to fill your hands. It is in exchanging the gifts of the earth that you shall find abundance and be satisfied. Yet unless the exchange be in love and kindly justice, it will but lead some to greed and others to hunger. When in the marketplace you toilers of the sea and fields and vineyards meet the weavers and the potters and the gatherers of spices, invoke then the master spirit of the earth to come into your midst and sanctify the scales and the reckoning that weighs value against value. And suffer not the barren-handed to take part in your transactions, who would sell their words for your labor. To such men you should say, "Come with us to the field, or go with our brothers to the sea and cast your net. For the land and the sea shall be bountiful to you, even as to us. And if there come the singers and the dancers and the flute players, buy of their gifts also, for they too are gatherers of fruit and frankincense, and that which they bring, though fashioned of dreams, is raiment and food for your soul. And before you leave the marketplace, see that no one has gone his way with empty hands. For the master spirit of the earth shall not sleep peacefully upon the wind till the needs of the least of you are satisfied." Okay, type in an exclamation mark in the chat if you would like to comment on this poem about buying and selling.
I think Nalini had her hand up. I don't know if she wanted to speak.
I don't see her.
No, no, sorry. I had raised the hand to read, but it was too late. So
Oh,
I
Nalini,
was.
I didn't realize it.
That's
My
okay.
apologies. I did not see you.
No, that's fine. Not a problem at all.
Next one, I shall call on you. Thank you. So I can make a few comments here while you guys gather your thoughts. You know, this, my favorite is the one where he reminds us that the poets and the singers are also gatherers of fruit, which I find to be delightful. I think that's what we shall call ourselves in our poetry event, Paul and Mona. They're gatherers of fruit. So I love the fact that he makes space here for food for your soul. I think that, again, this is just a really beautiful way of reminding us to balance. You need some of this, but you need some of that. And the other really impactful thing I think he says here is, before you leave the marketplace, see that no one has gone his way with empty hands. And I think that that's beautiful in that, there's this idea. We live in a modern society where it's very much, what can I get for this, without any consideration of a true bartering or of a true equitable reality. And this passage seems to highlight the idea that we can exchange and get something we truly want without leaving somebody else with nothing. And I really think that that's a lovely sentiment, without dissecting the actual feasibility of it, of its implementation or upholding it in our world. I think it's a beautiful thing to remember. I think I'm interested in, it's funny, somebody was saying that one of the comments here says that they haven't seen the idea of singers and musicians being bringers of fruit in Bible. That's interesting. Avanique, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were talking about, we could get what we want and not take away from anybody else or hurt anybody else. I think that is so true. And I think we have to think, if it's something that we want and we have to hurt someone else to get it, should we want it? Is it really that desirable? And I also think too of, I think all religions talk about, the two things, like taking care of yourself and taking care of other people. And, at some point, I'm going to bring up Outwitting the Devil, because I just listened to it today. And the devil is talking to the interviewer, and he says something like, of course you should look out for yourself. Of course you should take care of yourself. But once you've done that, you should take care of other people. And I think of that, and I think of, yes, you should meet your needs. And, there's nothing wrong with meeting your needs. But like you said, you don't have to think of hurting others, or it's like, I can meet my needs and I can help you meet yours. It could be an and rather than an or. And I think a lot of times in today's society, we look at it as a or, like, I have to get mine. So there's no way, I get mine and then you have to suffer. Or I get mine and I'll knock down anybody else that gets in my way. Instead of looking at that person as an obstacle, look at another solution. And I think that's what you're offering here, is that there is another solution. It's like, how about we both get it? How about we both reach to it? And I think you're able to live with yourself more if you do it that way, as opposed to, hurting someone else unnecessarily. So yeah, I think that's a beautiful point. And I think it would be like, I hate to be like Pollyanna, but I think it would be a much better world if we looked at it that way, as opposed to, I'm just worried about myself and no one else.
Indeed. Well, in this poem, again, as we move along in this collected work from the prophet, I'm seeing a lot of admonition for this call to moderation, right? And because he says that, you need some of this, you need some of that. It's kind of like when you go to the market. If you have $100 to spend, and that's all you have to spend, are you going to spend $100 on fish? That's not an entire meal. You need some broccoli. You might need some butter. Maybe you want chicken on Tuesday and not just fish. And your soul might need cookies. It happens, or ice cream if you're me. But the idea here is that if we fixate on one type of buying or selling, we may be doing so at the expense of other needs that we have. And that's what I'm seeing here, because he tells you, when he speaks of the singers and the dancers and the flute players, he says, buy of their gifts also. And also, can we talk for a minute about the fact that he uses gifts? Remember that this is a poem on buying and selling. So why would the word gift come up at all? But he's positing to us that anything we are buying is a gift that the seller has. And that's, on the surface, there's a seeming contradiction there. What do you guys think about that? I have some thoughts, but I'd be curious to hear some of yours before I get into that a little more. Go ahead, Mona.
I believe he's referring to the fact that the exchange between buyer and the seller is a need in itself. The buyer and the seller, the energy exchange has a purpose, right? So it's not just to satisfy your own need that you buy something, but you also provide for the person who's selling, because that person is making a living. That's how that person lives, right? With the energy that he gets from selling his gifts. And then sometimes being just a willing participant in this trade is just what keeps us all alive.
It's true. Go ahead, Sabrina. Hi.
I think the other interpretation for me would be, since you're talking about poets and that sort of thing, that it's a gift because they've put part of themselves into what they did, right? And everybody puts something of themselves into what they're doing. So there is something of that person there that is being given, and that really doesn't hold the price. It doesn't. It holds no, money value. But that, they immerse themselves in it, and you really can pay for it with money. So it becomes a gift.
That's an interesting thought, but why would that concept be in a passage about buying and selling? Because that's specifically what you're doing. You're at this marketplace to buy and or sell.
Right. But it's we buy and sell all the time, right? So just because something is being sold, it doesn't mean that there isn't, I don't know if the right word would be heart, right? But there's a part of you that got immersed in that. And depending on what it is, you know, from if it's a poet or an artist or somebody that, you know, does ceramics or that sort of thing. I'm being specific now, but even just, you know, just the merchant, right? Had to put part of him into it. And when it's done well, right? When you're doing it well, then there is a gift there. When you're doing it with love, right? When there's passion in what you're doing.
So I hear what you're saying, and I would take that thought one step further. I'm going to hold my thought though, because I want to hear what Evanique has to say, and I'll circle back around. Go ahead, Evanique.
Yeah, when Sabrina was talking, and I think I want to just expand on that by saying, you know, everything that we do, we put ourselves in, right? Into. Now, how much of ourselves we give is up to us, but it also adds to the quality of the product, right? So, if you think of it as you're buying a gift, you're buying the gift of the person, even if you're buying the gift of their time. Like if they, like, let's say if you're buying like produce, right? Like going to the farmer's market, and you know, the farmers are giving you the gift of their time, but not only that, when they truly care for their crop, they're giving you the gift of their love. You know, they're asking for, you know, a price because they, of course, they have to live and they have to take care of their own needs. Not only that, they have to buy supplies to continue to grow the food. So you are making a contribution to that as well, but you're buying the gift of them. They're giving you a little piece of them. So that's the way I look at it. But I think if that person kind of does, excuse my language, but a half-assed job, you're still putting yourself in there. You're just not putting your best self in there. And for some people, like, you know, something's lower quality, so you will bargain and give them less of your money or your goods because you know that it isn't the quality that they put in, and they're giving you themselves, but they're not giving you them best self. So, you know, it's all an exchange. And I think of you know, my grandmother grew up during the Depression, and so she would say, you know, like, people would give you, you know, like my mom would, you know, my mom would say, like, the grandma, like, you would go and get sage from this person, that sage is growing wild in our garden that they, you know, that they planted and it's growing. You know, they would maybe, in exchange, you would, you know, maybe give them some dinner or something like that. It was always like an exchange. And it was always the gift of yourself that you were giving, whether it was cooking, whether it was planting, whether it was, you know, that person over there is growing corn and they offer you some or they allow you to take it. It's all these things that, you know, you're still giving of yourself. Even in today's world, we are giving of ourselves at a job, we're giving our time, and we're giving a part of who we are to the job. So I think looking at it like that, I think just to expand on Sabrina's point.
I could see that. I think that's you know, the idea here of so something that we haven't discussed yet from this passage is where he tells us to suffer not the barren-handed to take part in your transactions. So it makes me think of everybody coming to a round table and everybody brings something, and it doesn't matter what you're bringing. Evanique brought an apple. You know, Mona brought an orange. Sabrina brought a piece, you know, a carved wooden stick. You know, and Nalini brought a song. You know, Mike brought a poem. So, and all these people are sitting at the table, and then Maritza sat there with nothing. It was like, if you say to me, oh, no worries, you brought nothing, but here's my apple. Well, the next time I'm going to show up empty-handed again. And the idea I think that what he's cautioning is that I take it back, because he actually goes one further. He says, who would sell their words for your labor? So the question here is, I think, if you're buying and selling, the key is that everyone should be satisfied. And if I'm just fast talking, how am I satisfying anyone or anything? And I think that that's it goes both ways. It's kind of an admonition for us not to find ourselves being the one who shows up barren-handed, and also to be the ones not to suffer someone. And to me, that's a very community-centric vibe. It's something that we don't tend to think about in our modern society when we are doing transactions. The idea that a transaction should be done with a intense intent to ensure satisfaction from all parties, and that we could possibly bear a responsibility if anyone in the group is not truly offering something. I think that's a very deep concept. The idea that we should be the ones to suffer not somebody who's brought nothing to the table. It's almost anathema to our reality today. Go ahead, Nalini.
Thank you, first of all. Thanks to everyone for making it clear to me. I wasn't very, very clear about it. But also, when it says, for they too are gatherers of fruit and frankincense, and that which they bring, though fashioned of dreams, is raiment and food for your soul. So though that is the clothing and food for your soul. So their singing, their dancing, their flute playing is what Sabrina said. Going beyond that, it is food for the soul. They may not have an apple, or they may not have fish, or they may not have seafood, but that side, that is so very important. So can't we look at that as something very important that they are bringing to all these people? So everyone would be happy. I don't know.
No, absolutely. Absolutely, Nalini. That's what Gibran is saying here, the prophet is saying, because, you should note that he includes the singers, the flute players, the dancers, the poets. He considers them to be on the side of people who showed up with something to sell or exchange. They are not the ones of whom he speaks when he speaks of those who arrive barren-handed, because when he speaks of the gatherers of fruit, he's speaking of the singers and the dancers and the flute players. So they are also at the table with something. They're not the ones who showed up with nothing.
Right. I mean, that's how I look at it, or that's how what I got out of it.
I would agree. That's kind of what I see as well. And thank you for pointing out that I had not brought this line up, but I think that it is just so beautiful to see that, the singers, the dancers, the flute players, that which they bring is fashioned of dreams and food for your soul. I just think that's beautiful.
To me, it was the most beautiful passage, or the lines in that poem.
I would agree.
So thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Sabrina, please go ahead.
I just have a quick comment that in society nowadays, you know, the singer, the poet, the artist, the you know, those that are in the creative arts don't really, they're not valued, right, equally as other things or other jobs. So I think it's interesting that he included that in there, because we don't value everybody's jobs equally, whether, you know, whether it's an artist or somebody that picks up garbage, right? Their job is of equal value, what they do, right? If they're putting their heart into it and doing a good job, why not respect them also, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So guys, the next one is Crime and Punishment. We have a little time. I think we can tackle Crime and Punishment. What do you think? Shall we end on so big a one? Crime and Punishment? I see nobody saying no, so let's go for it. This one's a couple pages long, so it's not a short passage. So I'm going to invite. So Nalini, did you still want to read?
Sorry. Yes, I can read. I
Okay.
was just looking at where did it go on
Okay.
my
So
iPhone.
Crime and Punishment is the next one. I don't know what copy you have. If you have the same one as mine, it's page 53. Well, 53 of the PDF. It's actually 45 of the book. But I'm going to put it up on the screen.
Sure.
And then I will have Mona as my second reader. Thank you, Mona. All right, let's get into this deep passage here. Go right ahead.
Okay. Give me just a minute.
No worries.
Okay.
All right.
Then one of the judges of the city stood forth and said, "Speak to us of crime and punishment." And he answered, saying, "It is when your spirit goes wandering upon the wind, that you alone and unguarded commit a wrong unto others, and therefore unto yourself. And for that wrong committed must you knock and wait a while unheeded at the gate of the blessed. Like the ocean in your God's self, it remains forever I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading. Undefiled, and like the ether, it lifts but the winged. Even like the sun is your God self. It knows not the ways of the mole, nor seeks it the holes of the serpent. But your God self dwells not alone in your being. Much in you is still man, and much in you is not yet man, but a shapeless pygmy that walks asleep in the mist, searching for its own awakening. And of the man in your wood, I now speak, for it is he, and not your God self, nor the pygmy in the mist, that knows crime and the punishment of the crime. Oftentimes Have I heard you speak of one who commits a wrong as though he were not one of you, but a stranger unto you and an intruder upon your word? But I say that even as the holy and the righteous cannot rise beyond the highest which is in each one of you, so the wicked and the weak cannot fall lower than the lowest, which is in you also. And as a single leaf turns not yellow, but with the silent knowledge of the whole tree, so the wrongdoer cannot do wrong without the hidden will of you all. Like a procession, you walk together towards your God self. You are the way and the wayfarers. And when one of you falls down, he falls for those behind him, a caution against the stumbling stone. Aye, and he falls for those ahead of him who thought faster and surer of foot, yet removed not the stumbling stone. And this also, though the word lie heavy upon your hearts, the murdered is not unaccountable for his own murder, and the robbed is not blameless in being robbed. The righteous is not innocent of the deeds of the wicked, and the white-handed is not clean in the doings of the felon. Yeah, the guilty is oftentimes the victim of the injured, and still more often the condemned is the burden bearer for the guiltless and unblamed. You cannot separate the just from the unjust and the good from the wicked, for they stand together before the face of the sun, even as the black thread and the white are woven together. And when the black thread breaks, the weaver shall look into the whole cloth, and he shall examine the loom also. If any of you should bring to judgment the unfaithful wife, let him also weigh the heart of her husband in scales and measure his soul with measurements. And let him who would lash the offender look upon the spirit of the offended. And if any of you would punish in the name of righteousness and lay the axe unto the evil tree, let him see to its roots. And verily he will find the roots of the good and the bad, the fruitful and the fruitless, all entwined together in the silent heart of the earth. And you judges, who would be just what judgment pronounces you upon him, who, though honest in the flesh, yet is a thief in spirit? What plenty lay you upon him, who slays in the flesh, yet is himself slain in the spirit? And how prosecute you him, who in action is a deceiver and oppressor, yet you also is aggrieved and outraged? And how shall you punish those whose remorse is already greater than their misdeeds? Is not remorse the justice which is administered by that very law which you would fain serve? Yet you cannot lay remorse upon the innocent, nor lift it from the heart of the guilty. Unbidden shall it call in the night, and men may wake and gaze upon themselves. And you who would understand justice, how shall you, unless you look upon all deeds in the fullness of light? Only then shall you know that the erect and the fallen are but one man standing in twilight between the night of his pygmy self and the day of his God self, and that the cornerstone of the temple is not higher than the lowest stone, and its foundation.
Thank you, Nalini. Was a long one. Let's have one more read. Go ahead, Mona.
Then one of the judges in the city stood forth and said, "Speak to us of crime and punishment." And he answered, saying, "It is when your spirit goes wandering upon the wind, that you, alone and unguarded, commit a wrong unto others and therefore unto yourself. And for that wrong committed must you knock and wait a while unheeded at the gate of the blessed. Like the ocean is your God self, it remains forever undefiled, and like the eater it lifts but the winged. Even like the sun is your God self, it knows not the ways of the mole, nor seeks it the holes of the serpent. But the God self dwells not alone in your being. Much in you is still man, and much in you is not yet man, but a shapeless pygmy that walks asleep in the midst, searching for its own awakening. And of the man in you would I now speak, for it is he and not your God self, nor the pygmy in the midst that knows crime and the punishment of crime. Oftentimes I heard you speak of one who commits a wrong as though he were not one of you, but a stranger unto you and an intruder upon your world. But I say that even as the holy and the righteous cannot rise beyond the highest which is in you, which is in each of you, so the wicked and the weak cannot fall lower than the lowest which is in you also. And as a single leaf turns not yellow, but with a silent knowledge of the whole tree, so the wrongdoer cannot do wrong without the hidden will of all of you all. Like a procession, you walk together towards the God self. You are the way and you are the wayfarers. And when one of you falls down, he falls for those behind him, a caution against a stumbling stone. Aye, and he falls for those ahead of him, for though faster and surer of foot, yet removed not the stumbling stone. And this also, though the word lie heavy upon your hearts, the murdered is not unaccountable for his own murder, and the robbed is not blameless in being robbed. The righteous is not innocent of the deeds of the wicked, and the white-handed is not clean in the wrongdoings of the felon. Yeah, the guilty is oftentimes the victim of the injured, and still more often the condemned is the burden bearer for the guiltless and unblamed. But you cannot separate the just from the unjust and the good from the wicked, for they stand together before the face of the sun, even as the black thread and the white are woven together. And when the black thread breaks, the weaver also when the black thread breaks, the weaver shall look into the whole cloth, and he shall examine the loom also. If any of you would bring to judgment the unfaithful wife, let him also weigh the heart of the husband in scales and measure his soul with measurements. And let him who would lash the offender look into the spirit of the offended. And if any of you would punish in the name of the righteous and lay the axe into the evil tree, let him see to its roots. And verily, he will find the roots of the good and the bad, the fruitful and the fruitless are all entwined together in the silent heart of the earth. And you, judges who would be just, what judgment pronounce you upon him who, though honest in the flesh, yet is a thief in spirit? What penalty lay you upon him who slays in flesh, yet is himself slain in the spirit? How prosecute you him who in action is a deceiver and an oppressor, yet who also is aggrieved and outraged? And how shall you punish those whose is already greater than their misdeeds? Is not remorse the judgment, is not remorse the justice which is administered by that very law which you would fain serve? Yet you cannot lay remorse upon the innocent, nor lift it from the heart of the guilty. Unbeaten shall it call in the night, that the men may wake and gaze upon themselves. And you who understand justice, how shall you, unless you look upon all deeds in the fullness of light? And only then shall you know that the erect and the fallen are but one man standing in twilight between the night of his pygmy self and the day of his God self. And the cornerstone of the temple is not higher than the lowest stone in its foundation.
Thank you. Thank you to both our readers. That was a very long passage. Very well done, guys. Much appreciated. All right, I have already someone queued up to chat. So Ginny, please, I welcome you to speak on this passage. Hi.
Hi. When did Kahlil Gibran wrote this again? What? I'm just trying to think. Have you heard of the novel Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky? Yeah, I'm just trying to think.
This would have been, I believe this would have been much before that.
Right. So maybe Dostoevsky got the name of his title of his book kind of from Kahlil Gibran. I'm just thinking. Anyway, it just, yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, okay. If anyone would like to comment on the passage that we just read, please type an exclamation in the chat.
Maritza, the date was September 23rd, 1920.
1920. Oh, I stand.
I'm sorry. No, it was published, it says. No, it couldn't be. Let me check and then I will get back to you. I'm sorry.
No worries. I don't know off the top of my head, so I can't speak to it with any true confidence.
1923, actually.
Okay.
Really, 1923.
That's much newer than I thought it was.
Oh yeah, it's much earlier than I thought. Wow.
Yeah, 1923.
Huh.
23.
All right. Well, let's not get lost in.
Sorry, I sidetracked a little bit on you.
Yes. Did you want to comment on the passage itself?
No, it's lovely. I mean, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So this is very long. So many deep things. To me, the overarching theme throughout this entire poem is the idea of community. I really hear in almost every line a deep, profound call for community. Where if one goes, so goes I. The idea that you are only as strong as your weakest individual. you guys know that is something very near and dear to me. I am a very firm believer that the path towards a stronger society, community, and culture lies in the individual. You know, what is a community but a group of individuals? That's what I'm seeing here in this poem. So I'm just delighted to see this one. There's also the idea that we do tend to disassociate with people in our communities who we think have gone bad, because we get very stuck in this good versus bad. If one does not hold the belief that everyone has within them the capacity for both good and evil, it's so very easy to just separate oneself from someone that we've perceived to have done something bad and ostracize them from the community. Like, you know, this person, like the concept being something I see very often is no one in this community would ever act in such a manner because this one individual has acted in such a manner. This one individual is clearly not part of this community any longer. Let's push them out. And I get it, but the idea is that, and what we're hearing here in this poem is that you are doing damage to yourself and your community by adopting this attitude. All should move together. And if one of them is moving in the wrong direction, would you truly just let them keep running in the wrong direction instead of yanking them and pulling them back into the herd? Or should you? And so that's what I'm hearing here. The you know, it's very beautifully woven. I mean, you know, it's poetry, right? He does. But I like the idea here. He talks about, I think it's lovely about the tree, you know, and it's very true. If you are a plant grower or anything like that, you will often find that it's never all rotten. I tend to be somebody who likes nursing plants to life. And so you can peel back enough and find usually a little bit of good, even in a blight, even if something that's overrun by, like, you know, if, I don't know if you've ever grown squash. If you get squash borers, they kill the plant from the inside. And by the time you see there's a problem, pretty much it's decimated. But if you're very careful and very patient, you can still find a little good to salvage out of that plant. So that's what comes to mind for this. Mona, please go ahead.
I was thinking in terms of punishment and judgment, and the way he talks about recognizing that the good and the bad is in everyone. So to me, it feels like he's not talking so much about justice in the terms of like the justice system, but it's a call for compassion. Like, for practical purposes, some things have to be judged in our reality, real life, but we should not judge completely in our hearts, where we sort of exclude people from the human from their humanity. That everyone is just as human with the good and the bad. And I think for me, he just calls for compassion rather than withholding judgment for practical purposes, you know, which might be necessary, you know. But then even the person who gets to be, say, judged for practical reasons, one could still have compassion for them. Like, say, the wife who is what was that? I forgot exactly. The adulterer, right? But you also look for what is in her heart. Like, why did she have to get to be in that place? So I think he calls for compassion mostly.
I definitely do see that there. You know, for me, what spoke the loudest is I thought he was calling for community, but I can't say that I don't also see the tendrils of the call to compassion there as well. Katie, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Hi, Katie.
It's funny because I feel like this is my life right now. I feel like sometimes hey, it's like dislike the action, not the person. I think that's kind of said. It's like, it's like, maybe like that might be a sin, but maybe it'll be compulsiveness. Like this person smokes or this, but then you don't view the part as everything that they do. It's just something that they do. You don't approve of that thing, but then you don't need to like judge the whole person based on the weakness. You know what I mean? Just kind of overlook, maybe that's the person I don't go to for, or maybe I don't look to them for that one small thing, not that I look at their whole person as the
I can see that. And that's so I see that in where he's talking about the idea of, we're trying to separate ourselves from this person suddenly because they're they've done something, and now suddenly this one action has made them, the entirety of them is to be thrown away. And so what you're saying is like, if you can't just view that one thing and suddenly pretend that the whole entire being no longer exists. I see that from him. It's the beautiful line he says, as a single leaf turns not yellow, but with the silent knowledge of the whole tree. That's the, he says, so the wrongdoer cannot do wrong without the hidden will of you all. And to me, that again, first, when I see that, I see community. I see a very deep, profound call for community and for, as a community, accepting the responsibility that the community may have played a role in the wrongdoing of the individual. But also, it's what you're saying here, Katie. I see the idea of, in not acknowledging that you've separated out a piece from this wrongdoer, this person, their action, you've separated it and objectified it in a way that's not really synchronous with reality. Like you can't actually take an action and separate it from the person wielding the action. So I think that's what I see there. Similar, like close to that statement, there's a couple other lines that are super impactful. He says, like a procession, you walk together towards your God self. Please type an exclamation to comment on this one line. I would love to hear that line and the one after it. So he says, like a procession, you walk together towards your God self. You are the way and the wayfarers. So my thoughts on this, and I will admit to a bias, but I read these lines and I just think of my mother saying to me, and I'm sorry, this is a Spanish quote. She says, dime con quién andas y te cuento quién eres. Tell me with whom you walk, and I will tell you who you are. And what I hear in this statement is that the people with whom you surround yourself will be the people that propel you forward. And the type of people with whom you walk will determine whether you are walking along your meaningful path in forward movement, or if you are walking along a lost path and lost sight of your way. That's what I'm hearing here. Like a procession, you walk together towards your God self. So if we accept that our God self is our meaningful path, whatever it means for you, if you're deeply religious, that's going to mean something different for you than it might for other people. I don't think it matters too much, because you are, it's the point of it is that you need the people around you to help you find that forward movement. What I would love to hear if anyone would like to comment on that. If not, we can get ready to close down because we are a little bit past on time. I just think it's so impactful. Nalini, please go ahead.
I just wanted to read the lines, and I was gone just for a minute, so I don't know if you already talked about it. But let me see, where did it go? I'm sorry. I think I lost it. There were, two lines.
I just read, let me read to you the ones I just read. Maybe they're the same.
Maybe it's the same because I love the leaf
Right.
that you mentioned. Yes.
Right. Yes, it's right after that one. Like a procession, you walk together towards your God self. You are the way and the wayfarers.
Yes. Yeah. It really touched me, we just blame others for something, but we don't see that all of our, like you said earlier, to be blamed for something that happens. But there was another, here. It says, and still more often, the condemned is the burden bearer for the guiltless and unblamed. You cannot separate the just from the unjust and the good from the wicked, for they stand together before the face of the sun, even as the black thread and the white are woven together. And when the black thread breaks, the weaver shall look into the whole cloth, and he shall examine the loom also. So as you mentioned earlier, it's not just one thing. It's the loom, it's the cloth, it's the weave, it's the threads. All those are together, and that's what it forms.
Yes, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Nalini. I really, that's another great line. This is such a large section that there's so many to choose from, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So guys, this brings us towards, the end of our session today. In 2 weeks, we'll meet again, and we will go with the next few passages. And so the next ones are, give you what the next ones are, sorry. So we have, next is going to be on laws, on freedom, on reason and passion, on pain, on self-knowledge. So those are a teaser for what's coming up. So please join us. We'll do the same formats. We may be switching days, but we'll announce that later. We haven't decided. Let me give you a very quick preview of what's coming up with 52 Living Ideas. We have many exciting things, as always, coming up. We do something every night. So tomorrow is Joseph Campbell on the Divine Feminine. That is going to be at 8 p.m. tomorrow. On Saturday, June 10th, we're doing Asian philosophies. The Bhagavad Gita is the beginning of spiritual journey, is at 5 p.m. on Saturday. On Sunday, oh guys, I'm so excited. On Sunday, the Girl from Spaceship Earth author herself is going to be with us. Pat Ravazio is joining us. I'm so excited. She wrote a book that's based off of many of Buckminster Fuller's concepts. It's such an approachable book. Sometimes Bucky can be very, very dense. She's delightful. It's such an easy, light read. You pick up the book and you will not be able to put it down. It's amazing. So join us at 8 p.m. on Sunday, June 11th, for our Bucky-inspired comprehensivity to understand and change the world series. It's going to be the author Pat Ravazio is going to be there with us to share life lessons that she learned from Bucky while working on her book. On Monday, feel free to join me at 8 p.m. for Poetry Mondays. our featured poet is going to be W.S. Merwin, and we're doing collaborative poetry on hope. On Tuesday, we're doing the art of war, and we're going to have, Aman and is going to be going through with, they're doing a deep dive into, I think it's chapter 12 now, a deep dive into chapter by chapter, discussing the art of war. On Wednesday, it'll be me again, and we'll be doing armed integrity from the perspective of Buckminster Fuller for one of his big ideas. So that's the week, guys. I bid you good night. Have a fantastic rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you at some of our other events. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.